She could be reading the phone book and I'd be mesmerised.
God, it was really quite gory.
How do you draw with your eyes closed?
What was I doing with my face? Why can't we just shoot that again?
I've even got thermal shorts on, look at that.
Please.
Mama first approached me with this script 3 years ago. This has been a long time coming. This is really special that we're doing this now. After 3 years of waiting to film it, I remember walking on set and being like, this is the set of the Rapture, we're actually doing it, it's happening. There's been a lot of changes to scripts and timings and everything, so the fact that we're here doing this is incredible to us. Yeah, 3 years ago it first came to me. I hadn't read the book. I completely fell in love with the character of Gabs and was so intrigued by Bethany, and I could just see so much of it. I love that when you get a script and you can imagine how it would look. I just went hyper-focused and deep dived into absolutely everything I could.
Welcome to Oxmouth.
Dr. Fox, let's start with Bethany Crawl. Guilty of murder and very dangerous.
They believed I killed my mum.
You didn't? And the book is quite old now, so to see how they've brought it up to 2025 and made it really relevant. The story of the Rapture is very timely because of the conversation on climate change, but also around mental health. Being a disabled person leading her first series, that's a huge thing for me as well. Aside from that, I as a viewer and just as a person, I love psychological thrillers, so to be in one is like an absolute dream.
I was just really kind of excited to be a part of a project that is talking about real world issues and matters. I've seen so much change come from the film and television industry, even if it's just conversations like things like adolescence, for instance, like the conversation that started in real world. It has real world effects, what we do.
1, 2, 3, 7, take 2.
Mark it, please.
Action. And reset, one more.
What are we shooting today? So we're coming to the end of the shoot, so we have quite a few different scenes from different times. So I've had scenes today with one of our characters called Sonic. He's one of the patients at Oxmouth. I have a scene with Iwan Rheon today, so that's always an absolute delight.
So our last scene in the whole series, which is quite crazy, Dick goes to Gab's apartment for the first time and sees some of the detective work she's been doing and starts to link up all the threads that have been unraveling throughout this exciting series.
Really fab working with the cast and especially with Ruth. There's kind of an unspoken rule of when you're number one on the call sheet on a project, you kind of do take on the energy of the set, or the set kind of takes on the energy of you. So if you work with someone who is a little bit more insular, sometimes the whole set can be quite it isn't as collaborative sometimes. But with Ruth, she's super open, super happy, energy all the time.
India is sensational. I think just not even just as being able to work alongside her. I would watch her in anything, just as aside from acting. I would, as a person, I would watch her on screen doing anything. She could be reading the phone book and I'd be mesmerised by her. So to be able to share the screen with her has been a true privilege. And the same for like Jack Farthing, Iwan Rheon, they're all incredible. And some fantastic Welsh actors down here who I'd not worked with before, like Richard Ellis. What an absolute dream. I just feel I've been very spoiled, basically.
Two mutual friends, other actors, an actor called Adam Long, who's in a thing called Film Club at the moment. We met on Masters of the Air. He was singing Ruth Madeley's praises a long time ago. She hasn't disappointed. She's been amazing. I don't know how she does it. India as well is a good friend of mine, who's also called Sam Clement, who was in Queen Charlotte with her, and also spoke very highly of her. So it's been really lovely to meet them.
She knew you were coming. She could see the future. All here to find the truth.
So every day, we do a lineup of the costumes for the next day. This is for tomorrow, which is our last but one day of shooting. So each day in the story has a different number. I think we've got 19 different story days on the Rapture.
The costumes are always a really important thing for me because it helps you feel like the character. This is very, very Dick Carrawin vibe going on here.
You have ideas about who the character is, and then you go into talks with the costume designer and the makeup designer, and they all help to bring it to life.
So important for an actor to feel very other from the character that they create. At least for me, I like to kind of see myself in the mirror and not recognize myself. Like I can really compartmentalize myself in the role, because then it's a different person. I can give it life and breadth and depth and its own gestures and its own kind of personality. So having, costume, hair and makeup, props, working with real props when we can as well and not stunt props and things has been really imperative to kind of get the feel of what she's like.
So the biggest challenge for us in costume has been shooting what is meant to look like a heat wave with temperatures of around 38 degrees in Wales in a sort of quite wet and cold autumn. We did start in, I think, August we started shooting, so we were okay, but very rapidly the weather sort of changed. And also for me as costume designer, sourcing costumes that need to look like summer costumes and summer weight fabrics when we've got Christmas jumpers fast approaching in the shop. So by the end of August, we were starting to see the end of the summer clothes and the beginning of like autumn winter clothes in the shop. So that's been a real challenge. Principal costume store. So this is like the character's wardrobe. So we start here with Gabrielle Fox, which is Ruth Madeley. This is her sort of costume section here, really. So she has multiples of each thing. So she's got one to wear and one to wash, but also we've had stunt doubles for her. We've had stand-ins. So we've got multiples of everything. So that was another challenge early on in prep, making sure that if I'd bought one thing that she liked, I had to make sure that I could get another 3 or 4 of them. We were looking at the colours of a heat wave, really, these sort of warm colours, rusts, reds.
The series takes place during a heat wave, an extreme heat wave. So obviously when filming in Wales in the autumn, that has its challenges. You just have to adapt really, and sometimes the scene has to be in a car or something because it just can't rain. That's the whole point. Lots of shorts and stuff because it's meant to be really hot. Yeah, we've been having to whip out some thermals. I've even got thermal shorts on, look at that.
I cannot believe that we are still doing the same show that we were doing in completely different weather. I can't believe we started this on the 11th of August. It's crazy that we had blazing sunshine. We were in Port Talbot for filming and it was 33 degrees and we're now in November. And we're still story-wise in a heat wave. And I think that's one of the most incredible things is no one's ever going to know that we were freezing.
Working on a job where, as I said, the content matter is really heavy and we have some very wet and windy filming days in Wales, the fact that crew have been able to, rig up certain shots, get visually exactly what we want when it seems near impossible, it's been really inspiring to see. One
of my favourite things about any shoots is the kind of coming together of all the different departments and all their work. And just for example, the art department on this have been amazing, creating pretty much a whole hospital, or maybe not a whole hospital, a floor of a hospital or a psych ward. Do you feel like you're in a hospital? It's quite alarming.
Dr. Fox, don't get sucked into the carnival.
Something is happening to me and I need to follow it.
Heat was a massive, it was right at the core of what we were doing. Everything had to the questions were, how do the surfaces react in heat? For example, windows. Windows in our Oxmith hospital, we gave a special treatment to accentuate the fact that they were heat damaged. And also we painted some of the windows in a white paint. This was the idea of reflecting heat back. So basically what we're trying to show is resilience. In these situations where the environment changes very quickly, you have to be resilient, you have to adapt into these circumstances. And we wanted to show that. Our story is, in lots of ways, about decay, whether it be political, spiritual decay. And then in the textures we were using, our hospital is worn out. An area of confinement. We took away a lot of the kind of comfort elements and we treated it with textures and paint finishes that were accentuating the heat.
What is this? Some kind of warning to back off because we're getting close to the truth?
I have got no idea what you're on about, my love.
I find the locations in collaboration with the director, the production designer, and obviously then once we've sort of landed on the location, we then obviously have to manage the day-to-day running of the location. The last couple of weeks have been challenging. Yeah, we are saying that we are living in a world where we're in sort of 35, 40 degree heat, constant heat. Beginning of the shoot, so the block one especially, we were very lucky with the weather. It was we had our own heatwave, which was great because, the skies were blue, the fields were yellow, burnt from the sun. As we sort of gone into September, October, now into November, unfortunately, we're struggling with the weather. Why Wales is obviously, the Mammoth decided that they wanted to sort of produce the show in Wales. And obviously I'm based in Wales, I'm based in South Wales and have been for the last 25, 30 years. So it's great, Wales as a sort of a backdrop for any sort of TV drama or film. It's great because we've got such variety of locations. We're based here in Dragon Studios, which is sort of just near Bridgend. We can be in the coast within 20 minutes. We can be up the mountains within 45, maybe 50 minutes. So we've got fantastic locations on our doorstep here in Wales. When you sort of watch any sort of TV show on telly, the last thing you think of is, I wonder how the locations department done this. You just sit there quietly, happily watching TV, but there's so much effort that goes in.
You're a bad influence.
What's wrong?
It's coming. The end. The rapture.
What we're looking at here is our technique of Bethany's premonitions. We wanted a way that we could bring to life her premonitions in a kind of frantic way, in the way that she didn't have to really think about what she was doing, almost as if she's in a trance, as if it's kind of just trying to get something out. In the initial reading of the script, the idea of the fact that we didn't want her to look at what she was doing and just kind of feel it. Continuous line drawing was something that kind of immediately kind of hit a chord.
I practiced quite a lot, trying to get looser and looser with the style. And eventually, I think we all came to the conclusion that, it was about the chaos. It was about feeling like she's onto the page. She's trying to get something out all the time. And the picture just comes up through the darkness.
Prep for the drawings were very much watching Mike, who did the drawings, do his work, and then I try and copy it. Kind of have 3 different variations of the drawings, or 4, with a blank page, which I always start. Then they have like a stencil outlining of the rough shape, then a slightly more filled, and then the end product. So we normally tape roll, we cut between each setup so that it looks like I've just been going and going. For me, it's more been about learning to copy the depth and the intensity at which he's put the pen. So there's certain areas on the page where it's really dark, so I know I can go ham.
It's connection with the exterior, a connection with nature that kind of focuses her ability to draw. I always felt like there was something that wasn't controlled, a little bit like as if you've got an itch and you just have to scratch it. And I think that immediately kind of give us, that kind of grounding of going, okay, well, it should be something that you can do with your eyes closed. So how do you draw with your eyes closed? The balance of it was trying to get enough detail so you could recognize a face, but not losing the fact that you could believe that she's drawing without looking.
There are so many versions of these drawings. I lost count, but it's in the hundreds. It's a continuous line in so much as soon as my hand cramps up, I have to stop. Or go get something to eat, because each drawing, for example, could take up to 6 hours.
With the drawings in the show, I knew there was going to be one of my character of Gabs, and I said I didn't want to see it until my character sees it for the first time, and it was the biggest shock. I mean, it was completely authentic. The shock was real because it was so incredible. I was like, oh, what a talent to be able to do that. I think the Rapture's special for so many reasons. The cast, the crew who are creating it, the detail, the tiny details that go into each set, each costume, each look. It's an important piece without being worthy or bashing you over the head with a climate change kind of conversation. It's just a beautiful story.
It's bringing, climate activism, and it's bringing big oil, and it's bringing sort of a more religious dimension. And also, it's kind of a whodunit as well, except you're trying to work backwards to figure out, whether it is true what's happened.
I think the subject matter is really imperative for change. And I really like the fact that I'm on a project that is dealing with something that is super important, that actually doesn't always get prime time spot on telly, or it's often like, I don't know, it becomes political, but actually I think this show would unpoliticize climate change and just make it a global problem.
Well, this is my first time EPing, and I've really found that to be such a privilege, to be able to EP on something and be the only disabled EP on the job. I think that's been a real honour, because I felt like I can bring something that perhaps another EP wouldn't be able to do on this job because they don't have the lived experience. So I was able to contribute creatively and also logistically with access, and get a great access coordinator on board. Really kind of dive deep into character stuff that, as a disabled person myself and my own lived experience of disability. The only thing I said I didn't want to do is watch rushes at the end of every day, because I don't want to watch myself at the end of every day. I think that wouldn't help any director directing me, because I'd come in the next day being like, what was I doing with my face? Why can't we just shoot that again? Why do I really sound like that? The thought about and prep and planning for accessibility has been really astounding.
But a lot of our locations are not accessible for a wheelchair user. So that was a challenge to sort of to overcome. But we had to sort of hire in additional ramps. We had to hire in there's this product called TerraGuard, which it's like it comes in sort of squares, and we just Lego it together, basically. Especially the residential sort of locations needed a lot of that. Leonard's house location, for instance. Yeah, fantastic location, but a really terrible location if you're a wheelchair user. So we, as a team, had to sort of come up with a plan to sort of make sure that that location became an accessible location.
There hasn't been one bit of the set that I've not been able to access on location and in studio. Studio is always easiest, isn't it? But there's not been one location that I haven't been able to access.
This shirt as well, which is one of her hero shirts, which she wears quite a lot, we've cut the bottom off, and we've put some elastic in the bottom. And this is just so that it sits really neatly when she's sat in her wheelchair. So rather than sort of tucking it into trousers and creating more bulk there, we've altered her shirts so that they just kind of sit like that.
It sounds like such a trivial thing, but you'd be surprised at how many sets I've been on that hasn't been the forethought of. Yeah, this really has. So that is the way forward for the future, please. It's been joyful, it's been hard, digging deep into a lot of character things that there's quite a lot of trauma in the show. It's been hysterical working with some incredibly funny people in something that is naturally quite dark. So having those kind of people on set to really bring you up has been incredible. It's just been a dream.